Hey guys, how you doing? How are we? I've been just faffing around with my selfie stick. It's on the ski whiff. So I don't know whether the screen's dodgy. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, we're here, episode 2 of this. It's going to be about a 10-part series with everything that I've got planned for you guys. But episode 2 of 5 years ago, I was living in a caravan or a trailer if you're in the States. And today I'm a millionaire with multiple income streams, passive income streams, property. Hey Jackie, oh, I can see comments. What a privilege. Haven't been able to see comments for weeks on Facebook. Evening Kerry, how you doing? Hey Caroline, yeah, as you're getting logged in, say hello. Let me know who's there. And even if you're catching up, hey Joanne on catch up and you're not watching live, still say hey and tell me, hey Lynn, where are you logging in from? Even if I can't say hello to you live, I will always go back and catch up and reply to you. Hey Annette, how you doing? So yeah, where are you in the world? Hey Simone, stranger, nice to see you. So yeah, quite a few people are getting in now. Hey Kath, hey, how are you? How you doing? So I'm gonna kick off. For those of you that are, hey Jackie, that are new to this new series, so maybe you missed part 1 last week. Let me just give you a brief summary of what to expect from this brand new free training, and what you're likely to get out of it. So I'm going to stop saying hello to everybody now and just focus in on, hey Colin, how you doing? I am going to stop saying hello to everybody now. So I started this last week with a view to share my experience of the last 5 years, right up to today. And the things that happened, the things that had to happen, the action I had to take, the specific steps that took me from that place of needing to sell everything I owned and move into a caravan to today and having that financial freedom and time freedom and ticking off every one of our goals. And if I'm honest, it's been a very well-timed therapeutic exercise for me to do as well, because I've been using my journals to go back and look at some of the entries, and just unpick some of the real, key lessons for you guys that maybe are still in the place that I was in or somewhere on that journey. Because I know, you're all at different levels, different stages of success, business knowledge, financial success. No two people listening to this are going to be the same. Some people are going to be just starting out and feel like it's never going to come together, maybe feel a little bit how I did back then, and like you've got like a mountain to climb and it all feels really overwhelming. And some of you are going to be a bit further along. Some of you are going to have faced some challenges already that you've had to navigate. Some of you are going to be feeling stuck. Some of you are going to be on fire. You're all going to be in different places, but you're all going to be able to take something from this last 5 years. I'm certain of that. And I always believe that our biggest challenges are never in vain if we use them to help someone else. They all happen, everything happens as it should, so that we can become who we need to become to maybe help somebody else on their journey. And that's really what this series is about. It's about me being able to unpick that journey, retrace my steps backwards, and help you guys in some way to move forward. So last week we talked about how I came to make the decision to move into a caravan and sell everything I own, and what led us to that place. Episode 1 is above this video if you haven't had time to catch it yet, so you can catch up. And you might want to spend this time now catching up on episode 1 rather than 2 if you haven't done that already, because what I'm about to say will make more sense if you've seen episode 1. But you don't have to do that. You could just dive in right now. So, as I was saying last week, we were in a position then where everything felt really tight financially. So the business we were running in nightclubs, and I called it the traditional business last week because it was in the sense of it was offline and I had to be somewhere meeting actual people in face to face to be able to do business. So it wasn't location independent. That business was overnight disappeared and felt like the rug had been pulled from under us. And the new business, the online business, wasn't yet doing enough to replace that business. Nowhere near. Not only could it not replace that business, but it couldn't really enable us to pay our bills, put food on the table, and have a bit left over to invest into the new business. And at the time, what we needed was knowledge. We needed to know more. We needed to be more in order to have more, because, you know, investment in business at the beginning, in the online sense, and this is a bit of a lesson, I think, for everybody who may be just starting out. Investment in the beginning, I believe, should be into us, into our skills, into the things that we know, not so much into pretty websites or expensive funnels or photography sessions even. You know, those things are luxuries if we have the ability to do that right away. But actually it can be a bit of a waste in the beginning because it's the point in our business where we know the least, and we might have to redo some of this stuff when we do begin to grow our knowledge. And when we know our ideal client and we know our messaging better, then we're better equipped to invest in these things. So what I needed then was knowledge. But I couldn't always go to seminars, hire a mentor, even buy books and online courses and things like that because things were so tight at home. I needed financially about £3,000, that is, a month, to be able to just, you know, get by, to be able to pay for all of those things and live. That was just the bare minimum. That wasn't like thrive point for us. That was survive point for us. And I honestly believe that that's the hardest position to be in as a small business owner, is that bit from the beginning to getting it to just pay you, getting your business to just pay you. It's what I call baby business stage, because it's all consuming. It demands everything of you. It doesn't give much back in return, a bit like a baby. As much as we love it and we're passionate about growing it, I'm talking about the business now, you know, it's not really giving much back in the beginning. It's the hardest part because it's that bit where we feel really anxious. We're thinking, oh my God, will it ever pay me? Will it ever, you know, be where I need it to be to survive from it? Because that's the dream, isn't it? To be able to do what you love and earn initially just enough from it to only have to do that and not have to worry about a job or hustle on the side, just to do that. And the hardest part at that point is putting the processes in place to make it pay you stably and consistently, so you don't have to worry and lie awake at night panicking about it. But you don't know, do you? You don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know at that point what those processes needed to be. What do I need to do every day? Like, what's that checklist of events that needs to happen like clockwork? You know, when you're in a job, someone hands you that, don't they? Hey, Ashley, someone gives you that checklist and says, this is what I want you to do and this is what I'll pay you to do it. And you do it. And at first it's hard because you don't really know how to do it well, but you know what to do at least. But in a business, you don't even know what to do, and no one is going to sit you down and tell you that stuff unless you get around those people and pay to be in the room. You know, as a business owner, it's on us to learn that. And that's where I was at. I was feeling stuck. Now, I'd love to know at this point, who else is in that position right now? You don't have to share all your secrets live on Facebook. I understand you might not want to do that. But if you're in that beginning stage where you're just getting your business to pay you consistently and to be able to feel like you can breathe, then just give me the high five emoji. Find that for me, or even just one. If you can only find one, whatever comes first, the two hands or the one hand, just so I know who you are and how many people roughly are in that place right now. Because I said at the beginning, I know that you're all going to be in very different spaces. And what's going to help me tailor this live series to give you what you need is knowing where you're at, so that I can meet you there. So where I was at this point in this story 5 years ago, we're in the first 90 days now. Thank you. Thanks, Lena. Okay, awesome. We're in the first 90 days now of being what some might say homeless. We packed up our stuff. We were living in the caravan now. We had very little in terms of stuff and things around us, you know. But in that first 90 days, I managed to double my income. So I went from sort of 1,500 a month and not having enough to get by to 3,000 a month and having enough, just enough. Not much more than enough if I'd have been living in my house. You know, in my house, that'd have been like break-even point. Oh God, we can breathe. But if next month it drops by even 50 quid, we're fucked. So just enough. And we were there now. Now what had been eluding me, that 3,000 a month that had been eluding me for months when I was living in the house with all the big outgoings, suddenly in the first 90 days, I actually think it was about 60 days, but I've said 90 to be sure, just so that I know I'm not saying anything that's overzealous in this, but I believe it was around the 60 mark. And when I was looking through my journal earlier, I couldn't confirm whether it was 60 days or 90, but I know it was somewhere in between there. So I've just gone with 90, but it was relatively quick to double my income and put myself in a place where, you know, 3,000 a month was coming in, and I knew exactly how to create that. You know, I developed the skills and the strategy and the processes to pretty much be able to hang my hat on 3 grand a month and go, I feel all right about that coming in. You know, I feel like that's going to be easy for me now. So how? What happened in those first 60 to 90 days that made it so much easier to do that when it felt so much harder before? And there's 2 things that I can see needed to come together from that when I'm retracing my steps. 2 things. And the one is the pressure releasing stuff that I'm going to talk you through. And this is like, when I say the pressure releasing stuff, I mean when you're too attached to an outcome, it seems to get further away. Who knows what I mean by that? Give me some hearts if you know what I mean by that. Have you ever been in that place where you want something almost too much? And it's like the more you chase it, the more it goes in the wrong direction, the more you seem to move away from it. And it's pressure that creates that, I believe. I can see some of you can relate to that. Give me some hearts if you can relate to that. And maybe you're in that place now or you've been there before. But if you've ever been in that place, and you'll know what I mean. And I think this is a real interesting clue, actually, to where our energy needs to be when it comes to manifestation. So I need to release some pressure. So I want to talk you through some of the things I did to release pressure, because if that's your problem, then that might help you tonight. And then the other thing is, the second thing is the action that I now had the time to take. The time, the energy, and the headspace to take. The reason that time was different is because I haven't just made myself small in terms of outgoings by making the decision to live in a caravan for a while, but I'd also made my commitments quite small as well. I'd made myself low maintenance. I'd made my life low maintenance, which gave me time to breathe. And, you know, I didn't have to spend hours cleaning the house anymore. You know, there just wasn't as much maintenance because there was just this little caravan and me, James, and the dogs, and far less to do because of that. And that's the other thing that I want to bring attention to here. It wasn't just the fact that I'd released some pressure and I could breathe because my outgoings were smaller. And that had in turn made me less attached to the outcome of needing to grow the business really quickly. So that had a big effect. But the second thing, the action, the time, and making yourself small, not just in outgoings, but in maintenance. Freeing yourself up. Because if you're trying to do everything you were trying to do before you were building a business and you just add that in, then it's going to feel uncomfortable, isn't it, naturally? Because there wasn't a business-shaped hole in your life before, probably. You were already filling 24 hours in the day and your head was probably already quite full. So you've introduced the idea of a new business or a new income stream. And if something hasn't given another area of our life, then it's no wonder that things are going to start to feel difficult. So what I found making that decision to live small and make myself small was that I also had more time because I was cutting out some of the things that was never going to help me build a business. And this is short term, you know, but it's just, you know, asking yourself some of the little things that you're responsible for. Who can I give them to? Like, who can I ask for help? Or what can I just stop doing completely? So some of the things I ended up stop doing just as a byproduct, and it was a happy accident, if you like, of moving into the caravan, was like, you know, ironing. I wasn't ironing for a couple of hours a week because I only had a small amount of clothes now. So it was just kind of get up, what am I wearing today? A couple of things to choose from, iron as I go. It was simple. Cleaning, as I mentioned before. And the garden, like the maintenance just in like the garden of like, before like seeing that as something else that needed to be on the to-do list. Like, and it might be for you like meals, or, you know, I remember James became chef at this period in our life, and he was like, I'll take care of the cooking and I'll walk the dogs. And it was just releasing some of that stuff off your plate and asking for help and saying, you know, this is short time. Like, I don't want to always have James cooking because I love to cook. We love to cook together. This isn't a way of life for us now, but this is a short term because we go at different paces in our business, depending on where we're at. And this was a pace that was the hardest. In the beginning is the hardest. Those of you that just gave me a high five and told me you're in that stage of your business now, this is as hard as it gets, guys. I promise you that. Because not only is the uncertainty at its greatest, but your skill set is at its smallest. Your confidence is at its smallest. Everything that you're doing is taking longer because it's all new to you and you're figuring things out as you go. So this is as hard as it gets, and it takes as much energy at this stage as it ever will. You know, as you get better, it will get easier. But this is the place where you need the most help. You know, and this is the place where I knew I needed the most help, and it's okay to say, look, could you take this from me? Could you do a bit of this? Could you do a bit of that? And that's what started to happen at this point. So let's look at the first thing that I wanted to share with you today that came from a journal entry around this time, and it made me really emotional reading this earlier. I had a little cry earlier. I had happy tears because you suddenly look back and you go, shit, I've done all right. You know, I've come really far. We've come really far, James and I, over the last few years. And it's not until you look back that you realise some of this stuff and you remember where you were. So there's a journal entry I want to read to you. And it was just a week into us living in the caravan. And this is what I've written this day. So it says, 1 week on the road, and I feel like I have everything. I've never felt so abundant. Some might say we have nothing right now, less than I've ever had. A few items of clothes, a caravan. But we have everything and nothing all at the same time. I've got food in the fridge, beautiful views that I get to wake up to every day, some money in the bank to invest into our growth. We've got each other, we've got our dogs, we've got our health. I already feel like a millionaire. I feel free and I feel excited. And the feeling of dread and anxiety that I've lived with for so long has disappeared. That must mean I'm on the right track, right? That's got to count for something, question mark. Just notice the energy shift in that journal entry compared to what I shared with you last week and how I was feeling before. I can remember this. I can remember where I was sat when I was writing this, and I can remember looking out of the window and we got a sea view, and I can remember thinking, people would pay hundreds of pounds a night in a hotel for this view. And this is my life now. Like, I get to live like this, and I felt so rich in other ways. And think about the energy that we need to be emitting in order to receive more. Like, you can see, can't you, the clear shift that in the house, scared, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. Oh my God, I need this. I have to do this. To, I have enough. I already have enough. That shift in feeling created a shift in energy and a shift in my ability to receive more into my life. And I can see that looking back. I can see that. So that's the first thing I'd say to you. Wherever you are now, how can you shift your energy to abundance? Whether it's that your focus needs to be on the things you do have. It might not take you to move into a caravan to release enough pressure. For me, this is what it took to get me in that space as a starting point. There's some other things I did that I'm going to share with you now, but that was really clear when I retraced my steps earlier. I thought, wow, that will have made a massive difference to my ability to, on an energetic level, to manifest more. The second thing is, I could say yes now to the right things, whereas before I felt torn constantly. There was always this tug of war before, resistance. Should I do that? Should I not do that? And I could think of an example that made a really big difference around this time. I received a phone call from somebody that had been mentoring me at this point, and his name's Andy, and he took me under his wing with virtually nothing to gain actually from it. Just, very little to gain, because I couldn't afford to contribute in a large way at this point, up until living in the caravan. And I'd been relying on piecing together what I could from different people to get me to this point. And Andy, who I'm so grateful to, and I think he knows that, I hope he knows that, I'd been able to just, every now and then, I'd be able to get a few snippets. I'd attended some trainings where he'd been speaking, and I'd been fortunate enough to have a couple of conversations with him where he'd imparted a few pearls of wisdom. And he messaged me, and it was around dinner time, tea time, around 5-6 o'clock on the evening, and we were in Cornwall at the time, literally on the edge. You can't get any further south. We were Land's End in England, in Cornwall, right on the edge of, on the cliff, looking out to the sea. And he messaged to say that quite a big leader in the online space was holding a training, a seminar, and it was a full day, and it was in the north the next day, but he'd managed to get hold of a few tickets, and if I could be there, I could have a ticket. And these tickets, they were always, it was like a free-for-all in terms of you didn't have your name and your seat number on them. So if you arrive early, then you got the best seats. And a really wise mentor said to me once, all the money at seminars is made at the front of the room, because they're the people that turn up first, get the good seats, or pay for the seats, depending on how it happens. All the money's made at the front of the room. Leaders sit at the front of the room. And it stayed with me. So I thought, shit, not only have I got to get from where I am to literally cross the country. Seminar started first thing the next morning, and I want to be at the front of the room. I didn't want to be there, I want to be at the front of the room. But the difference is, the dilemma had gone. It was a no-brainer. Let's go. It was a yes. Thank you. I'll take the ticket. Thank you very much. And although there was a charge for the ticket and the fuel to get there and pitch fees to stay there in the caravan and all the other things to work out, I could say yes. I could say yes without that tug of war, because it wasn't a case of either that or paying the phone bill, because I'd got some money because of what we'd done. We'd sold everything we owned, we'd got some money in the bank, our outgoings were small, we'd made ourselves small enough to be able to say yes. And we'd said yes to everything that was going to further our development. So we drove, we got in the car literally there and then. I think it was about a 6-hour drive. So there's some time to pack up. Any of you that have ever been caravanning know that it's not as simple as just start driving. We've got to pack everything away, get everything safe, hook up to the car, start the drive. And we arrived super late. It was 1, 2 in the morning, something like that. Had a few hours sleep to get up at 6, 7 to get to the venue, to make sure I was at the front of the queue and I could sit at the front of the room. And I learnt so much that day. I went away with pages and pages and pages of notes so that I could take that information and do something with it to make more money, so that time investment, money investment wasn't lost. I could maximise out of all of it. So the pressure being released meant that the two big things meant that my energy shifted. I felt abundant. Therefore, I felt more inspired, more motivated, more able to receive abundance. And I could say yes to things. I'd freed myself up to be able to be a yes person again without feeling torn. Because before, I was still saying yes. I was still investing in me. I was still doing what I needed to do. But I was doing it with a very different energy. I was doing it with resistance. I was doing it with fear. And it brings a very different result because you've got to have the mind power to be able to implement, and do the things that you're learning and absorb it all. And if you're in frantic panic mode all the time, then you don't necessarily have that. So that was the pressure bit. Now the action that I took, some of the tangible things I can remember doing that made a big difference that I can give you now that you can do too, if you think they're going to make a difference to you. The first thing is I got in control of our finances for the first time ever, like really in control. Because what I realised was, if you're earning $3,000 a month and getting to the end of the month feeling broke because you can't look after that 3,000 and make that 3,000 make more money, you can't make it multiply, then it won't be any different if you're earning 30,000 a month, because that can be a trap too. It can just be a bigger trap. And that was an epiphany moment for me. If you don't know how to look after a pound, you won't look after $1 million either. You can always go broke. And this has started to make sense because of the time and the money I'd got to invest. I'd got myself around the right people. I was listening not just about building a business, but about building wealth and what it meant to make money work for you, what it meant to have money coming in, but then money staying in and not filtering out. Because I needed to grow wealth. I wanted to be wealthy. I didn't want to just earn more, because I'd been around people that I'd seen do that at this point. Started to observe people differently, and I could see that some people around me at the seminars and the circles I was moving in, some of them were earning 10 times more than me. They were earning 30,000 a month, and back then that seemed like an obscene amount of money for me. That was like the ultimate dream at the time. I couldn't even imagine that back then, I don't think. I used to set goals like that, but I never really believed it then, I don't think. Like it didn't feel in reach. It just felt like a bit of a pipe dream. But I could see people around me doing it. And I could also see that they weren't necessarily any less stressed. They weren't necessarily in a more stable position. They were spending more. They were chasing the next goal. They were still... And I remember looking at that and thinking, I don't want to be busy forever. I love business. I love helping people. I love money. But I don't love it to the detriment of my health, making memories, time, doing the things I love. Those things come first for me. They've always been a priority. So for me to get to a place where I can be abundant financially and have a life and time, and here he is, the other half of the act. He has no idea he's live.
Live?
You're live.
Oops.
So to have it all, I needed to get a handle on money and not just business. Because, making money is one thing, keeping hold of it and knowing how to get it working for you and invest smart and all the rest of it, that's another thing. So I needed to be in control of my finances, really, truly in control for the first time ever. And I'm not saying that we were bad with money or we'd wasted money, but we'd made some shit decisions. We've got to own that, guys. You have to own that. If you're sat now looking at your bank account and not really liking what you see, then it's not just your business skills and entrepreneurial mindset that needs to develop. It's not just strategy you need to learn, but you also need to know how to think and act like a wealthy person so that you end up being in a wealthy position. And that's what it dawned on me. So I can remember one of the things that we did that made a really big difference, and it's a simple thing. We created a spreadsheet, and at the time it was through a company, an external company called YNAB. I don't know if they're still going because I don't use them anymore. I use something different now, but feel free to look it up. YNAB was YNAB. And it helped you to set budgets. And the way it worked when we did it was you put in all your outgoings and then you put in your incomings. And you could do a projection for the future as well. So you could say, right, so if like your goal was to do X amount next month, X amount the month after, you put all that in and then you'd set yourself budgets for like food budget. For us, it wasn't mortgage anymore. It was pitch fees, the self-development budget, and everything went in. If you're in any debt or credit cards, that all goes on there. And then it's linked to an app. Yeah, Kerry, that sounds like there's still an app. And when you spent something, like say we're in the supermarket and we'd just spent 100 quid, then we'd put £100 off the food budget. And it'd track every month so you knew. And the thing is with this, what really helped was that I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, there's enough. There's enough. And when I've encouraged clients to do this process in the early stages, if they're feeling a bit of pressure, sometimes there's more going out than there is coming in the beginning. But that's all right, because your awareness is there now. And where focus goes, energy flows. What we focus on, we get more of. So if we want it to go in the right direction, we're in control of that now because we know what it looks like. Most people don't have a great relationship with money and their own finances, and it shows up in their results when it comes to building more wealth. Most people don't even know, and this was true for me back then until I did this exercise. They don't know, like, what percentage of your incomings goes on your mortgage? What percentage goes on food? What percentage goes on non-essentials like eating out and, you know, just spending money? What percentage goes on like self-development and investing in you? They don't have that. They don't know. They're like, oh, I don't know. I just know money's tight. But what specifically? Like, if I was asking you now, like, what's the percentage of your incomings that's spent? Like, let's be really honest for a minute. What's the percentage of your income that goes on your normal monthly bills of just living, like car payment, mortgage payment, water, gas, electric, like all the essential stuff that has to go out? What percentage of your income is taken up on that stuff? Would you know the answer? Because when I was living in this house with the 2 cars on the drive and feeling like a noose was around my neck tightening, I didn't know what that percentage was. But if I'd have looked at it, I'd have realised that it was too high because it wasn't leaving anything left to invest. It wasn't leaving anything left to put money into something that would make me more money. It was just all going out on stuff that will never make me money, will only ever cost me money. So it's no wonder that I was ending up just on like a hamster wheel every month. And this is one of the things we go through actually, like Wealth Accelerator mentorship clients have access to something called the Wealth Academy as well, which is all about money, mindset, getting in control of your finances and the practical steps, not just like the how to think about money, but like what to physically do with it when it starts coming in. Like what percentage should I be allocating to things? And it all came from this stuff. When I'm retracing my step backwards now, I remember this is where it came from, because we decided, okay, we want X percentage to go on bills. And it was a small percent, smallest percentage as it could be. And it means getting rid of the luxuries in the beginning if that's what it takes. But that's all right. Look, I'm not suffering now because I lived in a caravan. It was only 6 months, 9 months tops, 6 to 9 months. Because we started easing out in the caravan and spending half the time in it towards the end. It was a short space of time. I'm not suffering any long-term effects of that. Like, I don't think you're going to suffer any long-term effects of cancelling Sky, eating out less. The problem is that we get so fixated on short-term gratification that the long game just never comes, because it's all like just that thing that's going to make us feel better now. I don't want to give up my eating out budget or my gym membership or Sky, or I don't want to live like that now. So we keep spending on the things that aren't really necessary now. But the long game, you know, it's really not that long either in the grand scale of things to make yourself small. So when it's all on a spreadsheet, literally everything that goes out broken down and you can see, if you don't like what you see, and there's not much left over for you to invest in the things that really matter right now, that are going to help you build your business and build a better income, then you can tweak it. You can look at it and go, okay, well, that needs to come out. And that's what we started doing. Even in a caravan, there was still room to do it. Still room to do it. Made ourselves really small, but I was still going, okay, but we can claw back there. Because if we get our gas from there, instead of that there, it's cheaper. And it's only a tenner a month, but it's an extra tenner a month. And then what I could see on this spreadsheet was the money we'd got in the bank giving us even more breathing space. I worked out I'd got like a year before I even needed to make anything above that £3,000. And I was fine, like I was just fine. I'd got enough to invest. And suddenly I was like, I've just got to keep doing what I'm doing. And I've got this foundation. And you can do that. Anyone can do that. It's a choice, it's a decision. It's just getting our priorities right. That's all it really is, but for a short term. So that was one of the first things. Second things in terms of money that I did was more like the non-practical, but more concerned around my relationship with it and how I felt about money, and therefore my ability to create more. This was the first point that I started taking money mindset really, really seriously. And actually working on how I felt about money. And this was a new concept for me. But what I realised was your relationship with money will determine how much you can create. It will. And I don't just mean from an energetic manifestation point of view. I mean because how we feel about something shows up in everything that we do. Unconsciously as well. That's the dangerous stuff, the unconscious behaviours. And I looked at it and I thought, if I've wound up broke enough to have to live in a caravan, and yes, that was a choice. I could have stayed in the house, gone and got a job, but I knew that was a slippery slope to more of the same. If I've wound up broke enough and uncomfortable enough to do something this drastic, if I'm not abundant financially and I've not got my 10k months, 20k months coming in easily, and I can't travel the world whenever I want to and do the things that I want to do, and if I can't do those things, it's because my actions, my thoughts haven't been in alignment with those things, therefore my actions haven't been in alignment with those things. So what I first need to change is the way I think about money so that I act in a different way in the pursuit of it. And there was an exercise that I did, and I can't remember now where this exercise initially came from. I know it was recommended from a friend who talked me through it, but I don't know where she'd had it from. But at the time, my friend said to me, have you done any work on money mindset? Because I was telling her about my finance, my trackers, and all these things that I'd done, and that I wanted to be, I wanted to be long-term wealthy. And I was telling her this stuff, and she was like, oh, I can't remember where she had it from, but she's like, I did this exercise, it was really powerful. And she talked me through it, and I did it. And I'm going to share the exercise with you. And this exercise is now also in something I include in the academy, because I know the difference it made for me, and it's something that I would advise that you do on a regular basis. And it was about understanding why we feel the way we do about money. Because if we know why, then we can start to make steps to change it. So I knew there was something in me that sabotaged myself when it came to money, because the book stops with me. I can't blame anybody else. I couldn't blame my mate who screwed me over in episode 1. Like, I couldn't blame him for my position. I couldn't blame any, economic or climate, like, circumstance or situation. The book stops with you. Like, we got to own it. We have to own it. That's the first step in changing things, is really fucking taking responsibility. And I had to look at it and go, this is on me. Like, I created this. The good, the bad, the ugly, I've created this. And if I'm going to change this, then I need to look at why I created this. And I knew there was something going on in here with my relationship with money that was playing out. Yeah, some of it was not knowing everything I needed to know yet about how to make more money online, but some of it was also down to me because I'd made money. I'd made a lot of money in nightclubs and I'd still ended up with very little. There was a reason for that. And some of it was the practical stuff, not being in control of my finances, not looking at where it was all going and having budgets. And some of it was the way I think and felt. So, the exercise. You basically sit when you're going to have very little distraction or no distraction, really. Maybe just half an hour to yourself. In a peaceful environment where you can focus. You know, you don't want the dogs barking or the children running in, screaming for mommy, or, you know, you want to know that you're just going to have some time to devote to this so that you can really go within. Because a lot of this stuff that we hold about money, it's unconscious, it's not conscious. It's not something we're consciously aware of, it's unconscious patterns. And most of our actions are driven by unconscious patterns. We instinctively know what we're going to do and not what we're not going to do before we've even done it. We do. There's a reason why some people take opportunities and some people hold back. It's all unconscious stuff. And in 99% of the time it's formed. These unconscious beliefs that form our actions are formed without us even knowing about them. So we've got to give ourselves some time to just, in a relaxed state, to be able to tap in to that unconscious stuff that we've stored. Our mind's a bit like, or unconscious and conscious mind's a bit like a computer hard drive system. It's constantly storing things, forming opinions and beliefs on things so that when it comes to doing something or not doing something, making a decision or around a particular subject, we can make a snapshot decision really quickly on whether we're going to do something or not, or how we're going to do it, because we're making this decision based on all this stored information. And we start storing it from a very young age, listening to our parents, our teachers, our peers, working out where we sit in the world and what we believe about the world. It all starts then. So when you're sat quietly, pen and paper in hand, that's all you need, pen and paper, and a quiet space. And then what you do is you just go over and write down from memory anything that you remember that's negative when it comes to money. Any negative memory that you hold for money, with money. All sorts started to come up for me. My pen was on fire. I remember times where I'd been passed up for opportunities when I was employed, where I could have been paid more, and I wasn't paid more because I wasn't given that promotion. Times where I was stole from. I remember things like a child, like a teenager, having birthday money, and it was stole from me in a toilet. I put my purse on the side, was washing my hands, and it was taken. I remember people, like wealthy people that I knew, that were arseholes, total dickheads, and I thought I'd attached some negative impression there about being wealthy and being a dickhead. Arguments that I'd heard and that I'd been privy to about money. You just brain dump it. Everything that you can possibly remember. That time when, that conversation, just anything that comes up. You'll be amazed at what comes up, what just kind of leaks out onto the page. Things that you didn't even realise you'd remembered. You know, like when you're in a car and you're going along, driving along, and something comes on the radio that you haven't heard for years, but suddenly you remember, you're singing along and you remember every word. Unconscious mind, it's just stored it. And if I'd have said the name of the song to you and told you to recall it in this instant, you might not have remembered it. But when it was needed and when it was commanded of you, because it was triggered, you start singing along. And that's the unconscious mind. And this is what plays out with money and your relationship to success. You store, and you don't even know it's there. But then when you're required to do something, act in a certain way, make a decision, take an opportunity, whatever it might be, you're triggered. And you're either triggered good or bad. And all of the negative stuff that comes out on paper around money is going to alert you to some of the things that might be triggering you to maybe not act in accordance to somebody that's building wealth. self-sabotage, engage in things that don't serve you, say no where you should say yes where you should say no, all of that stuff. Suddenly it's on paper. And I'm not kidding you, I had, the first time I did this, back then, A4 pages of stuff that had just been sat there. And then you can look back and you can just kind of look at it and go, wow, no fucking wonder, no? And then what you do is you just take a pen, a different coloured pen, something that's going to, you know, be able to scribble it out so you can't see it anymore. You go over every memory and out loud, scribble it out and say cancel, clear, delete, cancel, clear, delete, cancel, clear, delete, cancel, clear, delete. Because what you're saying to the unconscious mind is, thank you for storing that. I understand you're trying to help. I understand you were trying to do me a favour and make it easier for me to make decisions using this information. But this no longer serves me. I don't need to hold on to this anymore. I can release all of this because none of this stuff being sat in here is going to lead me to wealth. Cancel, clear, delete, cancel, clear, delete. And then when you've gone cancel, clear, delete all of it, you can rip it up, set fire to it, you know, have some sort of ceremony if you want to. But you feel lighter. It's a feeling. I remember sitting back and saying to James, God, I feel lighter around this. And I was suddenly more conscious about the words I used when it came to money. You know, like not saying I can't afford that. Ever saying I can't afford that, but I'm choosing to save because I'm on my way to being wealthy, and that's what wealthy people do, and just reframing it. You know, when I'm handing over money to pay for something, not feeling that, oh God, I'm letting go of it, but plenty more where that came from. No problem. Plenty more where that, you know, when I saw money in my purse or, thank you. I love you. You're just kind of listening to other people talk about money, but being mindful to be cancel, clear, delete if they were coming at it from a scarcity place. Or I started to heal that relationship with money. That was the first point that I can remember really going all in on that. And I'd heard other people talk about it up until that point. I'd done courses, you know, I dabbled a bit, but I went all in on it. I was like, no, I'm going to do all this. I'm going to actually, nothing heavy, nothing that's going to add to your to-do list, but, you know, just one-off things like every now and then doing that cancel, clear, delete process to see what else has been stored in there around that subject if you feel like there's a bit of resistance. And then once the tracker was done, it took a bit of time to initially, you know, set everything up with all of my incomings, all of my outgoings. But then it was easy because I got the app and it's just a case of, yeah, spent that. Oh, you know, I've got an extra 500 quid this month because I've earned more and I've spent less. So it became like a game of like getting more in and only spending on the things that were going to build more wealth. The focus was there, so the attention was there, so the energy was going there. So I felt good about it, and they're the key things that I can say helped to double my income in such a short space of time when we moved into the caravan. Next week, I'm going to be talking about how I learned to listen to myself, my intuition, source, God, higher self, and as a result, manifested a house to live in Lanzarote, in the sun, by the sea. And that was the next step for me, because that was one of my big goals then, was to live in the sun, by the sea, and live abundantly, financially free. So one of the big things that enabled me to do that was by being able to go within and listen to what I was being guided to do and what was right for me and what wasn't, and to relax into that and really drop into that space rather than being all up here all the time. Because up until that point, I'd been really in my masculine energy, and everything had been about forcing and pushing and striving. And I learned in this next part of the story that I'm going to share with you how to drop into more of my feminine energy, my soul, and move towards success with ease and flow and peace and calm, and that's what I want to share with you next week, and how that transpired into manifesting what seemed like the unachievable in a very short space of time. Very short space of time. You know, these are things that people go, oh, you know, in 5 years I'd quite like to live in a house by the sea, and it was months. It was a space of months from can't afford my house in the UK, living in a caravan, to living in a beautiful home by the sea. I could see the sea from my window, from my garden, and being able to afford it. And that's what I want to share with you next week, how that happened really quickly. Because I want to take the ceiling off your thinking on what's possible for you when you can relax and drop into that soul part of yourself. Now, one of the big reasons WAM, Wealth Accelerator Mentorship, my signature program, the thing that I've become known for, one of the big reasons that I include, I'm not a money mindset coach. That's not what I am. All the dogs have all just come running in. Not a money mindset coach. Don't claim for that to be my area of expertise. I'm all about business strategy. But this stuff's relevant. This, you know, getting in control of your finances, money mind, it's all relevant. And that's why when women come into the Wealth Accelerator Mentorship, they also get access to the Academy, which is all about this stuff, this non-strategic, you know, business strategy stuff there. The other stuff that has to be part of your plan, or else nothing really works and everything feels clunky. And as I said last week, we've opened the doors for a few more places for people to enrol at the end of this year. November 30th is our final enrolment date for 2020. And why are we starting on November 30th? Because if you want 2021 to be your best year ever, if you start in January, you're already too late. You know, the work we do now in November together in WAM is going to see how you end the first quarter of 2021. You know, we've got stuff to do if you're really serious about ending this year strong and starting next year powerfully. Otherwise, next year is just going to be the same as every other year. So we've opened up just a handful of extra places because they went like that when November WAM went on sale. And to apply for that, you need to reach out to me personally to have a discovery call, because I run these discovery calls myself personally. It's important that I do that because it has to be a fit. You have to be ready for success. I have to be the right person to help you get it. And we'll only know that by having a conversation, you and I. So I've never ever give that to my team to do for WAM, because WAM's my baby and the people in it, failure's not an option. So if you feel like you want to have one of those calls with me to check suitability, then you need to reach out and let us know. So you can either comment on this video and say, I would like a call with you, and one of my team will be in touch to get that arranged, or you can inbox us personally and have a little chat with us to find out whether there might be a fit there before the call, and we'll then get that booked in if we think that it might be. So that's episode 2. It's a wrap. Can't wait to see you next week to talk about the process of manifesting the house in Lanzarote and how I had to release and surrender more to do it, and what that process looked like, and how actually I had to work less, not do more to do it, and how I had to learn to trust my intuition and what that meant. So I'll see you next week.